She rented a millionaire CEO boyfriend for $2 and didn't realize he was the man she broke years ago. Before we begin, comment below and tell us where you're from. Which city are you watching from? And when it's over, be sure to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. She borrowed a $20 dress to sneak into a luxury gala just to prove she wasn't a nobody. But when she spilled wine on a man cleaning the floor, she thought he was a janitor. He turned out to be the billionaire CEO who owned the building. And what he did next, it didn't just change her night, it changed her life. Ava Green had never seen a dress like that in person before. It shimmered in the dusty afternoon light, like something out of a dream, sleek, champagne-colored silk, the kind of fabric that whispers when you walk. Her cousin Sabrina had flung it on the couch like it was nothing more than an afterthought. "You can borrow it, I guess," Sabrina had said with a roll of her eyes. "But be careful. It costs more than your rent." Ava forced a smile and nodded, clutching the hanger like it might vanish. She didn't belong at a high society gala. But Sabrina had made it sound like a favor, like charity. "You'll get to taste a better life for a night. Just don't talk too much." That last part stung more than it should have. But Ava had grown used to being the one who stayed quiet, stayed out of the way, stayed small. Her apartment smelled like cheap lavender detergent and reheated soup. The dress didn't fit quite right. It tugged at her ribs and gaped at the chest. But in the bathroom mirror, with a little borrowed lipstick and her hair pinned up, she looked passable. "You clean up, okay?" she whispered to herself, with the kind of smile that almost convinces. The gala was downtown. She took the bus. Outside the venue, everything was lit up in golden string lights. There were Bentleys and black-tinted town cars pulling up to the curb, laughter echoing from inside, like it came from another planet. The doorman looked her over once, then let her in. Maybe because she kept her chin up and walked like she belonged. Inside, it was overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers, waiters in tuxedos, people who smelled like money and wore it like perfume. Ava kept her arms close, trying not to brush against anything too fragile or too expensive. Sabrina had already vanished, absorbed into a crowd of glittering friends. Ava hovered by the drinks table and tried not to panic. Maybe if she sipped slowly, smiled politely, and stayed out of everyone's way, no one would notice she didn't belong. That's when it happened. She turned too fast, elbow knocking a full glass of red wine straight into the chest of a man crouched by the edge of the marble floor. He was wearing black slacks and a dark button-down, simple, understated. He had a white cloth in his hand and had been wiping something on the floor. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry," Ava stammered, mortified. "I didn't see you. Are you? Oh, let me get someone." The man stood slowly. He was tall, older than her by a few years, dark hair, clean-cut jawline, sharp eyes that flicked over her face like he was memorizing it. "No need." He said softly, "It's just wine." "Still, I should be more careful. I didn't mean to spill it on you. I thought you were." She stopped. "Part of the cleaning crew." He smiled faintly. "A lot of people think that." "I didn't mean," she started to explain, cheeks burning. But he shook his head. "Don't worry. Enjoy your evening, Miss Ava," she said quietly. "Ava," he repeated, as if testing how the name felt on his tongue. "I'll remember that." And just like that, he walked away. No anger, no complaint, just calm. Ava stood frozen in place, the sting of embarrassment blooming in her chest. Later that night, she found a quiet corner by the balcony to escape. The lights of the city twinkled beneath her feet. She watched the couples laugh and swirl across the dance floor, pretending she didn't notice her cousin avoiding her. "This is not your world," she whispered to herself. But for a few hours, she had worn a silk dress. She had slipped into a different life. And even if she had made a fool of herself, spilling wine on some poor staff guy, at least no one would remember her. She would go home, return the dress, and be forgotten. Only she wouldn't be, because the man she'd spilled wine on, he wasn't the janitor. He was the CEO, and he would remember her. Chapter 1. The Crash. The slap of cheap heels on marble didn't exactly scream elegance. Ava tried to walk slower, quieter. But the echo of her footsteps seemed to mock her with every step. She pressed her back to a wall near the bar and exhaled. The ballroom spun with laughter and clinking glasses. Waiters moved like ghosts, balancing trays of oysters and champagne. A jazz trio played something smooth and smoky. She was in someone else's life. That's how it felt. The dress hugged her wrong in the hips. Her borrowed clutch kept sliding from under her arm. And her cousin, Sabrina, had disappeared the moment they walked in, swallowed up by a circle of blonde. Botoxed perfection. 2 hours. Ava whispered, "I just have to survive 2 hours. Then she could go home, wash off the perfume that wasn't hers, and forget that she'd tried to pretend." She reached for a glass of wine. Her hand trembled slightly as she brought it to her lips, trying not to spill. One of the women nearby whispered something, glanced her way, then laughed behind manicured fingers. Ava turned away. "Don't listen," she told herself. "They don't know you. They don't matter." She took a step back and felt the jolt of impact. Her elbow jerked. The wine glass flew. Red liquid exploded onto a man's shirt. He had been crouching, unseen, wiping something from the floor. And now he stood, tall and soaked and silent. "Oh no," Ava gasped. I'm so sorry, oh my God." She grabbed napkins from the bar and rushed toward him. "Here, please. Let me." "It's fine," he said calmly. He took the napkins but didn't use them. He didn't look angry, just patient. Like this wasn't the first time someone had underestimated him. Ava's face burned. "I didn't see you. I thought, are you staff? Oh God, that sounds terrible." He smiled faintly, but there was something unreadable in his eyes. Not hurt, not amused, just stillness. "I get that a lot," he said. "It's just your shirt. It's dry cleanable." He interrupted gently. "Don't worry." She stared at the floor, mortified. "I'll pay for the cleaning," she offered. "It's not necessary." He looked at her for a moment, really looked, like he saw past the fancy dress and into the girl underneath, the one trying too hard not to fall apart. "Have a good night, Ava," he said softly. Her head snapped up. How did you?" But he was already walking away. 10 minutes later, Ava stood alone on the rooftop terrace, arms wrapped around herself against the breeze. The city looked unreal from up here. Glass towers glowing gold, headlights snaking through the streets like rivers of light. It was beautiful, and it wasn't hers. Idiot, she whispered. Why had she come here? Why had she let her cousin talk her into this stupid charade? She took off her heels and stood barefoot against the cold stone. It felt honest, grounded. "You clean up, okay?" She repeated the words she'd told herself earlier. Now they just felt hollow. Back downstairs, the man she had spilled wine on slipped through the crowd unnoticed. No one greeted him. No one recognized him. And that's how he preferred it. His name was Brian Westwood. He was the CEO of Westwood Industries, the host of this gala, the owner of the hotel, the employer of half the people in the room. But tonight, he had dressed down, no suit, no press, no spotlight, just observation. And then, a girl in a borrowed dress, clearly out of place, had seen him crouched on the floor and assumed he was the janitor. It's always the honest ones who tell you the truth without meaning to. He muttered to himself. He liked her. Not because she was graceful, she wasn't. Not because she was polite, she clearly wasn't. But because she was real, and in a world of polished masks, and empty flattery. Real was a rare thing. Ava, he whispered to himself again. Yeah, I'll remember that name. Back on the rooftop, Ava slipped her shoes back on and walked toward the elevator, head lowered. One more gala I'll never be invited back to, she muttered. But as the elevator doors closed, a camera clicked quietly from the shadows. A blurry photo of her and Brian mid-collision. It wouldn't go viral. Not yet, but soon. Everyone would know her name. Chapter 2. The Mistaken Billionaire. The next morning, Ava walked into the Maple and Grain Cafe, wearing her usual uniform, black hoodie, jeans, hair in a low bun, and the kind of tired eyes that come from a night of trying to forget. She ordered a black coffee and slid into her usual corner booth. This was her place, her routine, quiet, cozy, and absolutely free of crystal chandeliers or people who judged you by your shoes. The borrowed dress had already been returned. The borrowed pride, too. Ava sipped her coffee and pulled out her sketchbook. She liked to draw people. Windows, things that stayed still long enough to be understood. That's when the bell over the door jingled. She didn't look up at first, not until she felt it, that strange pressure, like someone was watching her. She turned her head and nearly dropped her coffee. There he was, the man from the gala, the man she'd spilled wine on, wearing a crisp white button-down and a wool coat that looked like it belonged in a fashion magazine. He had a quiet kind of elegance, no flash, no labels, just presence, and he was walking right toward her. Mind if I sit? He asked, as if they were old friends. Ava blinked. You what are you doing here? I come here every Saturday, he said, sliding into the booth across from her, like it was the most natural thing in the world. But today's special, I was hoping I'd run into someone. Did you follow me? No, he smiled, but I hoped you'd come. Her brain couldn't keep up. Wait, weren't you? Are you staff? No, that's not right. You're not staff. He tilted his head, amused. Let's just say I work there. That was your building, she asked slowly. Something like that. So who are you, really? Brian, he said simply. Brian Westwood. The name hit her like a slap, because even Ava, who didn't care about business gossip, had heard it before. In headlines, on Forbes lists. You're the CEO, she whispered. He nodded, calm, and you called me Ava. You remembered the name of the girl who mistook you for a janitor and dumped a glass of Cabernet down your shirt. Hard to forget. She didn't know whether to laugh or hide under the table. I feel like I owe you another coffee, she mumbled. No need, he said, lifting his own cup, already covered. She stared at him, unsure what game he was playing. Rich people didn't do this. They didn't show up at cafes looking for girls who couldn't afford Uber. Are you messing with me? She asked. Not at all. Then why are you here? Brian leaned back in the booth, watching her carefully. Because I liked the way you looked at me, Ava blinked. I insulted you. No, you saw what you thought was the truth. No filters, no flattery. You didn't care about who I was. And that was refreshing. She exhaled slowly. You must live in a different world than I do. I do, but I'm tired of that world. A long pause stretched between them. The clink of mugs, the hum of espresso machines. Outside, someone walked a dog in a pink raincoat. So what now? She asked. Brian hesitated, then reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. This, he said, sliding it across the table, is an invitation. To what? A private weekend retreat. Business leaders, creative thinkers, a few investors. It's not formal. More like a gathering of ideas, but it's quiet, peaceful, thoughtful. Ava stared at the envelope, like it might bite her. Why me? Because I need someone real there. Someone who isn't trying to pitch a startup or charm a VC, just someone to talk to. And you chose the girl who dumped wine on you. Exactly. Is this a trap? Brian laughed softly. No, just an invitation. And what would I do there? Whatever you want. Be a guest. Draw. Think. Breathe. Why me? She asked again. Softer this time. Brian leaned forward. Because I haven't felt normal around anyone in years. Until you. Ava swallowed the lump in her throat. She didn't trust this. It was too strange, too fast, too kind. But something about his voice, his stillness, made her want to believe him. Okay, she said slowly, but I'm not bringing any ball gowns. Good, he said. Standing, come as you are. He handed her the envelope and smiled again, gently this time. See you Friday. And just like that, he walked out. Ava looked down at the envelope, then at her empty coffee cup. What the hell just happened? She whispered. She didn't know it yet, but everything had just changed. She opened the envelope at home. Inside was a handwritten note on thick cream paper. No rolls, no masks, just conversation. Let's find out who we are, without all the noise. And in that moment, Ava knew something strange and wonderful was beginning. She just didn't know how much it would cost her heart. Chapter 3, A Deal with a Gentleman. When Ava stepped into the penthouse, her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her ribs. It didn't look real. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline like a painting. Polished concrete floors, a grand piano no one had touched in years. Bookshelves taller than her apartment ceiling. Not one thing out of place. It was like walking into a museum curated by someone who had everything, but didn't know what to do with it. Take your shoes off. Or don't, Brian said, watching her. He stood near the kitchen island, dressed in a soft charcoal sweater and jeans. Relaxed, but not casual. Still precise. Still a little unreadable. I'm not used to this, Ava said honestly. Good. I'm not asking you to be. She kicked off her sneakers, left them by the door like a kid afraid of muddying the carpet. This isn't a date, right? She asked, arms folded. No, Brian said. It's a deal. What kind of deal? 1 week. I cover expenses. You give me honesty. What kind of honesty? The kind no one gives a billionaire. Ava narrowed her eyes. You want me to insult you for 7 days straight. Only if it's true, he said, smirking. No fine print. No weird strings. You're not signing anything. And no, there's no hidden clause that says you owe me anything. Just be who you are. Ava didn't know what unnerved her more, his kindness or his complete lack of expectations. Why are you doing this? She asked. Because you don't look at me the way they all do. And how do they look at you? Like a walking vault. She swallowed hard. The room felt too quiet. The view, too sharp. And how do I look at you? Like I'm just a guy who got wine on his shirt. Ava looked down. That wasn't exactly my best moment. It was mine, Brian said softly. He gave her a tour. The library, the guest room, the kitchen, with cabinets that opened with a whisper. Everything was minimalist, expensive, beautiful, and cold. There were no photos, no clutter, no signs that anyone lived here beyond utility. It was the cleanest kind of loneliness. This place is perfect, Ava said quietly. It's sterile, Brian corrected. Looks impressive. Feels empty. So why live here? Because it keeps people at a distance. She glanced at him. And you like distance? I used to. That night, they sat on the balcony in silence, watching fog roll over the bay. Ava wrapped herself in a blanket he'd tossed her without asking. He didn't hover, didn't explain himself. He just existed next to her, steady, present. I don't know what you see in this, she said, after a while. In what? Me? He didn't answer right away. Then, I see something I haven't felt in years, which is normal. Ava turned to him. You know? That's not a real answer, right? Brian smirked. It's the only one I have. Later, she walked past the piano. One key was chipped. Just one, a small flaw in a perfect instrument. She pressed it. A single note echoed into the stillness. Brian didn't turn, but he said, I don't play anymore. Why not? Because the last time I played, my mother was alive. Silence. Sorry, Ava whispered. Don't be. That was the first honest moment I've had in weeks. That night, Ava lay in the guest room under silk sheets she didn't deserve, staring at the ceiling. What kind of man gives a girl like her a penthouse guest room for a week just for conversation? And what kind of girl says yes? She didn't know what she was doing. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like the poor girl trying to keep up. She just felt seen. And that was more dangerous than any kiss. Chapter 4. The Retreat. The villa sat on the edge of the sea like it had nowhere else to be. A pale, sun-washed home with stone walls and windows that opened directly to the sound of waves. There were no doormen, no vala, no name on the sign. Just silence and salt in the air. Ava stepped out of the car and took a breath so deep it startled her. This is where the CEOs go to escape being CEOs, she asked. Brian stood beside her, hands in his pockets, eyes on the horizon. It's where I go to remember I'm still human. Inside, the rooms were simple. Clay tile floors, linen curtains, handmade mugs with small chips. It wasn't lavish. It was intentional. The kind of space built for thinking, not performing. There were maybe a dozen guests, quietly intelligent, casually dressed, sipping coffee and speaking in soft voices about things that actually mattered. No name tags. Ava whispered, no need. No one here is trying to impress anyone. Ava glanced at him. Except maybe you, Brian smiled without denying it. They joined a fireside circle that evening. The topic was growth after failure. Ava listened more than she spoke. But when someone asked, can you ever really start over? Her answer came quietly. Not all of us have the luxury to start over. Sometimes you just have to keep walking and call it progress. The group fell quiet. Brian looked at her like he'd just learned something sacred. Later, they sat on the back deck, watching the sky pour stars over the ocean. The wind picked up, and Ava wrapped herself in her cardigan. So, this is your secret hideaway. Something like that, Brian said. And you bring strangers here to what study them. I brought you here. Why? Because I wanted to see what you'd be like when no one was watching. She turned to him slowly. And what did you see? Brian hesitated. You're softer than you pretend to be. Is that a compliment or an insult? It's a truth. She let the silence settle between them like fog. Then, what about you? What about me? When did you stop letting people see who you are? Brian looked away. When I realized no one really cared unless it benefited them. That's bleak. That's business. That's lonely, she said. He didn't argue. Inside the villa, someone played piano, a low, slow piece that sounded like longing. Ava closed her eyes and listened. Do you miss it? She asked. What? Being unknown. Brian was quiet for a long time. Every day. The next morning, Ava woke up to a tray of warm pastries and hand-poured coffee outside her door. No note, no signature, just care. She ate on the balcony, legs curled under her, watching the waves. Like they were telling a story, only she could hear. Brian found her there an hour later, holding her sketchbook, fingers stained with charcoal. You draw? He asked. Sometimes, when I don't have the right words. Can I see? She hesitated, then turned the page. A sketch of the piano player from the night before, head bowed, music rising around him like smoke. You have talent, Brian said. I have truth, she corrected. Talent's just decoration. That night, as the wind howled and waves crashed, Ava and Brian stood on the cliff behind the villa. bundled in thick coats, no touching, no flirting, just presence. If you could go back, Ava said, to when you had nothing, would you do it all again? Brian looked at her. Only if you were waiting on the other side. Ava's breath caught. He hadn't touched her hand, but he'd touched something deeper. Chapter 5. The Fire Pit. The fire cracked gently as the log shifted, sending a small spray of sparks into the chilly night air. Ava hugged her knees to her chest, wrapped in one of the villa's soft wool blankets. She sat beside Brian, their shoulders inches apart, but it felt like miles. The others had gone to bed, their laughter and footsteps fading behind wooden doors. Only Ava and Brian remained, two silhouettes in the flicker of flame, two souls suspended in the stillness. Neither spoke for a long while. I used to wish I was someone else, Ava said finally, her voice small. Brian turned to her. When? Middle school. High school? This morning. A small, sad smile played at her lips. Someone smoother, prettier. Risher? I don't know. Just not me. Brian didn't interrupt. He waited. Then one day, I realized I'd never be that girl, the one who walks into a room and owns it. I'm always going to be the one standing in the back, calculating the exits. And now, he asked, now, I've made peace with being invisible. It hurts less than being noticed and judged. Brian's jaw clenched softly. You're not invisible. Here maybe, with you, but out there. She gestured to the darkness beyond the cliff. People like me aren't meant to be seen. Brian shifted closer, not touching. Just present. I know what it's like to want to disappear. Ava looked at him skeptically. You, the billionaire golden boy. Once, I was a kid in foster care with a stutter and shoes 2 sizes too small. My lunch came in a grocery bag, and I used to hope if I stayed quiet enough, no one would pick on me that day. Ava stared at him. He wasn't speaking with pride. He wasn't performing. He was remembering what changed. She whispered, I stopped waiting to be rescued. Started building armor, dollars, degrees, distance. Whatever kept the world from seeing, I was still that boy. And has it worked? Brian gave a short laugh, only in public. Ava turned toward him, the firelight casting gold along her cheekbones. What's the thing you're most afraid people will find out? He didn't hesitate. That I'm lonely. The honesty knocked the wind out of her. When you've built your life on performance, it's hard to know what's real. People love my name, my title, my power, but me. I don't think they've met you, she said quietly. Silence stretched again. Not awkward, just necessary. Then Ava spoke, barely audible. I'm scared too. Of what? Of liking you more than I should. Brian's gaze didn't waver. Why is that scary? Because you'll leave. Maybe I won't. You all do. That landed. He reached for her hand, but didn't take it. Just hovered, open-palmed, letting her decide. Ava looked at it for a long moment. Then slowly, she slid her fingers into his. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a promise. But it was more intimate than either. Why me? She whispered. Brian's thumb traced the back of her hand. Because when I talk to you, I feel like I'm not performing. I'm just breathing. That's a dangerous thing to say. I know. They sat that way for a long time, hands entwined. Fire dimming, stars, watching silently. No future promises, no past regrets, just the present and the sound of 2 guarded hearts daring to unlock. Click by click, when they finally stood to leave, Ava pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Thank you, she said. For what? Not trying to fix me. Brian looked at her and smiled softly. I wouldn't dare. You're the most honest thing I've met in years. She stepped inside. He stood outside a little longer, letting the wind hit his face. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't trying to control the moment. He was just feeling it. Chapter 6. The Reveal. Ava stared at herself in the mirror. The dress wasn't borrowed. This time, it was gifted. Simple black silk, elegant and understated. A handwritten note had come with it. Wear this if you feel ready to be seen. She did, and she didn't. The gala was nothing like the villa. No fireside truths, no bare cliffs, just towering centerpieces and flashbulbs. The air buzzed with perfume and money. Ava walked in alone. Brian stood at the far end of the room, laughing with someone important. He looked like a stranger in that suit, polished. She felt her spine straighten, her stomach twist. Don't get swept up, she told herself. This isn't your world. When he spotted her, his whole body shifted. Softer. Kelmir, you came, he said, offering his arm. I wasn't sure I should. I'm glad you did. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Things started to unravel at the champagne table. A tall blonde woman with crimson lips and the air of a runway model appeared beside them. Brian, she purred. You didn't say you were bringing someone. Ava recognized her. Everyone did. Victoria Quinn, heiress, model. Brian's ex-fiancée. We're not together, Ava said quickly. Of course you're not, Victoria replied, eyes narrowing slightly. Brian's always been so generous to underdogs. The words sliced, sweet and sharp. Brian didn't respond fast enough. Ava stepped back. I need air. Outside on the balcony. The cold bit harder than she expected. She leaned on the stone railing, trying to swallow the lump in her throat. Brian followed. She was out of line, he said. You didn't deny it. What? That this is a game to you. A project. Charity with a heartbeat. Ava. No, that's not. Did you know who I was when I spilled that wine on you? He froze. Yes. Excuse me? I saw you come in. I recognized you from a pitch deck. Months ago. Someone mentioned you applied for a junior design internship. I remembered the sketches. Ava's face went pale. So you knew. From the beginning. Not everything, but enough. She stepped back. You said I made you feel normal. You did, but I wasn't your equal. I was an experiment. Some broken bird you let perch on your shoulder to feel something. That's not true. You should have told me. I wanted to, but every time I tried, I got scared I'd lose you. So instead you lied. No, I withheld. That's a rich man's way of saying lie. The music from inside swelled. So, did the silence between them? Ava's hands trembled. Not from cold. I told you my fears, she said. And you used them to stage your honesty. Ava, don't. She turned to leave. You invited me into your world so you could feel human. But I already was. He let her walk away, not because he didn't care, but because in that moment, he didn't know how to make it right. In the elevator, Ava wiped her cheeks with the sleeve of the dress he'd given her, the silk smeared with tears she hadn't planned to shed. Back in her tiny apartment, she kicked off the heels, peeled off the illusion, and curled into bed, fully dressed. Her sketchbook sat untouched on the table, open to a half-finished drawing of him. She closed it gently, then slid it back under her bed. Next time, she whispered to no one, don't fall for the man who already owns everything. Chapter 7. The Return to Normal. The silence in Ava's apartment wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that sat on her chest when she woke up, followed her from the shower to the kitchen, and hovered over her while she sipped cold coffee in mismatched socks. The silk dress still hung from the back of her closet door. She hadn't touched it. Her sketchbook stayed shut, and her phone off. She didn't want to risk seeing his name. By Tuesday, she was back behind the front desk at Eloise and Sons Design, answering phones and pretending she hadn't once danced barefoot on a balcony by the sea with a billionaire who said she made him feel human. New mood board for the Whitmore account? Her manager said, sliding a folder toward her. You're good with color. Add some of that raw edge you bring. Raw edge. Translation: you're not like us, but sometimes that works. Ava smiled politely. She worked late that night. The kind of late where the building hummed with nothing but the fluorescent buzz of forgotten hours. No luxury, no firelight, just her and the scent of printer toner. But she didn't hate it. She was good at this. And for once, she wasn't pretending. That weekend, she met her best friend, Olivia, at their favorite diner. Vinyl booths, greasy hash browns, cheap coffee that somehow tasted better than anything poured from crystal. Olivia slid into the seat across from her, pulled off her sunglasses, and raised an eyebrow. You look like someone who's been emotionally whiplashed by a rich man. That obvious? Huh. You haven't posted in a week. That's practically a cry for help. Ava stirred her coffee. We're done. Did he mess it up? He lied. They all do. No. I mean, he lied by hiding. By choosing when to be honest. Which means he was protecting something. Or protecting you. Ava looked up, eyes glassy. I told him things I hadn't even told you. Olivia leaned forward, softer now. You trusted him. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you ready. Ready for what? For love. Real love. The kind that's not about saving or proving or performing. The kind where two people stand naked in front of each other, not literally, and say, "Here I am. Can you still love me anyway?" Ava didn't answer. She just blinked quickly and took a bite of her toast before she cried into her eggs. The next afternoon, she was restocking swatches in the office supply closet when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Deep, calm, almost reverent. I was told the receptionist here is surprisingly good at design. She turned around slowly. There he was, Brian. No suit, no coat, just a soft navy sweater and jeans. The man, not the CEO. How did you find me? You listed this company on your old design portfolio. It wasn't hard. Why are you here? Because I wasn't ready before. To be seen, to be forgiven, or maybe to forgive myself. Ava crossed her arms. This isn't the place for billionaire speeches. I didn't come to make one. Then what? To ask for nothing. Silence. Just a coffee, he added. As equals, no billas, no gifts. Just a guy who messed up asking a girl if she'll sit with him. Anywhere. She stared at him. He looked nervous. It was the first time he ever had. Same place as last time. She asked, Maple and Grain. 1 hour. I'll be there. He turned to leave. Brian. He paused. Bring your real self. No filters. That's all I've got left, he said, and disappeared around the corner. Back at her desk, Ava pulled out her sketchbook. She flipped to the last drawing, the half-finished portrait of him. This time, she didn't close it. She sharpened her pencil and started again. Because maybe healing didn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it came in showing up with a clean heart and a second cup of coffee. Chapter 8. The Breakdown. Ava sat at the corner booth facing the window, a cup of lukewarm coffee between her palms. She'd come 10 minutes early to calm her nerves, but her hands were still shaking. The bell over the door chimed. She didn't need to look. She felt him. Brian slid into the seat across from her, unshaven, eyes heavy, human. Thanks for coming, he said. You found me, she replied. And I'm not going to run this time. Silence. Then, so why didn't you tell me? Ava asked, eyes never leaving his. Not just about the job lead or my portfolio, but about everything. Brian exhaled. Because I wanted to know you without power between us. Without position. I wanted to feel like I wasn't buying something. So instead, you staged the whole thing. No, that first night, I didn't plan to talk to you, but after you spilled that wine and didn't recognize me, I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. So, You let me embarrass myself. I let you see me. Ava's eyes welled. Do you know what it's like to walk into a room and feel like everyone's already decided who you are? Yes, he said gently. I do. But for you, it's because they don't expect anything. For me, it's because they expect everything. Then maybe we were both just tired, she whispered, tired of not being known. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small object, a folded sketch, her sketch, the one from the villa. The piano player. You left this, he said, sliding it across the table. Ava's breath caught. You kept it. I framed it until I didn't feel like I deserved it anymore. She swallowed. Why do you want me back? Because with you, I don't have to be him, the CEO. The solution, the performance, I can just be Brian. And that version of me only exists when you're around. You still have all the power. Then tell me what to do with it. Tears slipped down her cheek. Don't use it to save me. Use it to see me. He nodded, voice cracking. Done. She took a deep breath. I don't want fancy. I don't want headlines. I don't need rescue. Then what do you need? He asked. She met his gaze. Someone who doesn't walk away when it gets hard. He reached across the table, took her hand gentle this time, not urgent. Then stay, she said softly. But stay as you, not the version the world made. Deal. They sat there, the sun dropping behind them, casting amber light on a moment neither would ever forget. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As the cafe lights dimmed, Brian traced the rim of his cup. You were never a poor girl to me. Ava looked down. And you were never just a CEO. She paused. You were the first person who made me feel chosen. He didn't answer. He just squeezed her hand like a promise. Not the kind you say out loud. The kind you keep. Chapter 9. The offer. The first thing Ava noticed was the smell. Lavender, rosemary, warm citrus leaves curling in the dusk air. Brian's garden wasn't public knowledge. No photos, no Instagram tags. Just a quiet rooftop space above his penthouse, built for no one but him. And now, I didn't know you had a garden, Ava said as she stepped onto the terrace. No one does, Brian replied, holding the gate open. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, hands a little dirty from repotting something himself. You plant these yourself. Yeah, therapy with dirt. Didn't peg you for the hands in the soil type. Didn't peg you for the stay in my life type, he said gently. But here you are. They sat at a small wooden table beneath a string of golden Edison bulbs. Between them, 2 cups of tea and a small linen envelope. Ava eyed it warily. You're not proposing, are you? Brian chuckled. No rings, no diamonds, just an offer. He slid the envelope toward her. I want to hire you. She blinked. What? Not out of pity. Not because I love you, but because you're good. And my company needs good. Doing what? Creative lead for our new community branch. Housing, education, wellness. We're shifting from luxury to legacy. You'd be building the look and feel of something that actually matters. And this has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with who I see when I look at you. But it's not a favor, it's faith. Ava held the envelope but didn't open it yet. You're offering me a future. No, Brian said. I'm offering you options. The future's yours to choose. And if I say no, then I still love you. Her heart flipped in her chest. He'd said it without a grand speech, no spotlight, just a man telling the truth. You love me, she said softly, in the quietest way, the kind that doesn't need to be shouted, just lived. She opened the envelope. Inside, a clean contract, fair pay, creative freedom, her name listed at the top as lead designer. She looked up at him. I need time. Take it. I'm not saying yes because of you. I'm counting on that. They walked through the garden as the stars came out. He showed her the lemon trees, the rosemary, the tiny wind chimes he'd hung when his mother passed, because she believed every soul came back in sound. "What happens if this doesn't work?" she asked. "Then we tried with open eyes," Brian said. "And if it does, then we build something together that no one else gets to touch." She reached for his hand this time, not out of fear, but choice. As they stood among the flowers, Ava whispered, "You were the first man to offer me a life, instead of asking me to fit into yours." He kissed her forehead, slow, reverent, and full of stillness. No urgency, because some loves don't rush. They arrive. Chapter 10. The answer. The old schoolyard hadn't changed much. The chain-link fence still creaked in the wind. The cracked basketball court still wore its faded lines, and the swings rusty. Crooked still swayed when no one was looking. Ava sat on the middle swing, sketchbook in her lap, watching the sun slip behind the roof of the corner store where she used to buy candy with spare quarters. She hadn't come here to remember the past. She came here to claim it. She flipped through her sketchbook. The drawing of Brian was there. So was the villa, the fire pit, the cafe, his garden. But the last page was new. It was her, not the version in a gown, not the girl trying to fit into someone else's skyline. Just Ava, jeans, bare feet, a small smile, her own skin. Brian found her there as the streetlights blinked on. He didn't say anything. He just sat on the swing beside her, knees too long for it, looking like a man who had learned patience the hard way. "You always find me," she said. "I think you let me." She handed him the sketchbook. "That last page is your answer." He turned to it slowly. His throat moved as he swallowed. "You chose you," he whispered. "Yes. And I want a life where choosing myself doesn't mean losing you." He looked at her then, fully. No walls, no roles. "You won't," he said. "Not this time." She pulled a second envelope from her bag. "My signed contract," she said. "On one condition." "Name it." "I'm not your project. I'm your partner. Always," Brian said. They shook on it, like equals, like old friends, like people who had already seen each other break. "And we're still here." He stood, walked behind her, and gave the swing the gentlest push. She laughed a full, unfiltered sound and let herself go higher. "What if I fall?" she teased. "Then I catch you." "What if you fall? Then maybe you finally catch me." They walked home slowly. No cameras, no chauffeurs, no stage, just pavement underfoot and dusk above. At the corner, where they'd part ways, Ava turned to him. "This time," she said, "we walk into the world together." Brian took her hand, not to claim her, not to guide her, just to hold on. "Together," he said. And for the first time in both their lives, together didn't mean losing themselves. It meant finally being whole. 1 year later, a small, closed for private event sign hung in the window of Maple and Grain Cafe. Inside, candles flickered between vases of wildflowers. Nothing extravagant, just soft light and the scent of cinnamon muffins from the oven. Ava sat at the corner booth, the same one where she'd once questioned a man's identity and her own worth. Now, she owned part of this cafe. Brian was running late, not because he forgot, but because he'd taken a wrong turn walking back from the mural unveiling. Her mural, the one she'd designed for the new downtown community center. He texted, "Don't move. I want to remember exactly how this started." She smiled. When he arrived, wind-tousled and grinning, he sat across from her like always. "We survived," he said. "We changed," she corrected. Together, the camera wouldn't have caught this scene. There was no proposal, no orchestra, just 2 cups of coffee, 2 quiet smiles, and a sketchbook between them half full. "Still growing," Ava whispered, more to herself than him. "The love I wanted wasn't someone to save me. It was someone who saw I'd already survived and chose me anyway." Brian reached for her hand, and I still do, not in the loud way, but in the way that lasts. Sometimes love doesn't arrive on a yacht or in a glass elevator. Sometimes it walks into a cafe in a hoodie and spills wine on someone's future. That's the beauty of true love stories. They don't need to be loud. They just need to be real. Tell us, what are your thoughts on this story? Leave a comment and rate it from 0 to 10. Make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell to follow all our latest stories. And don't miss out. Click here to watch more now.